When we speak of greatness, we often imagine thrones, titles, or applause. But God, in His divine wisdom, does not measure greatness by outward symbols. He measures it by hidden potential. When God looks at you, He does not see the brokenness you carry, nor the shame that you drag behind you like a shadow. He sees beyond your failures, beyond your self-doubt, beyond your fragile human reasoning. He sees a lion, not because you feel powerful, but because He placed power within you long before you were aware of it. This is the mystery of divine selection. He does not call the qualified, He qualifies those He calls. History bears witness to this paradox. Moses stuttered, yet he confronted Pharaoh. Jeremiah called himself a child, yet he prophesied to nations. Gideon was threshing wheat in hiding when the angel called him a mighty man of valor. There is a pattern in how heaven operates. Offensive, it seeks the overlooked, the underestimated, the insecure, and speaks into them a destiny far greater than their present circumstance suggests. This is not flattery. This is not flat-out truth. God sees not what is visible to man, but what is concealed within the soul. He does not call you based on your resume. He calls you based on your design. This truth offends human pride because we like to earn our worth. We like to believe that greatness is something we climb toward like a ladder. But God, in His divine economy, starts from the inside out. He implants purpose into your spirit and then begins the painful, sometimes confusing process of excavating it. The lion in you lie dormant for years. You may live in obscurity and the offense of underestimated by others and even by yourself. But when the time is right, God speaks. And when He speaks, become the offense of He calls not to the surface version of you, but to the deeper self, the self you haven't even met yet. Offense of what is more powerful than being known by God is being called by God while you are still unsure of who you are. It is not that He ignores your fears. It is that He transcends them. He does not pretend your anxiety doesn't exist. He just chooses not to let it define you. The problem is not that we are weak. The problem is that we have made peace with weakness. The office of we have mistaken humility for hiding. We've allowed rejection to shrink our roar. But God is not calling you to be safe. He is calling you to be bold. There is a lion in you and heaven is waiting for it to awaken. Let me ask you, how many times have you disqualified yourself in your mind before life gave you a chance to try? How many times have you looked at your reflection and seen only the flaws, never the fire? We live in a world that teaches us to be careful, the offense of, to play small to survive. But God has not called you merely to survive. Lions do not beg, they do not tiptoe, they take territory. And yet, how many of us live like mice, though we are born to rule? It is not arrogance to walk in divine confidence. It is disobedience to pretend you are less than what God says you are. There is a psychological warfare waged daily between who we think we are and who God knows us to be. The danger is not that you are weak. The danger is that you are powerful and unaware. You carry within you a divine assignment encoded in your soul. But until you respond to the call, until you rise from the place of self-pity, the lion remains a whisper. And let me tell you this, the world will not always affirm the roar inside you. Some people will be intimidated by it. Others will try to tame it. But your validation does not come from applause. It comes from alignment. When you align with God's voice over your own, when you obey even in uncertainty, that is when the lion begins to emerge. Think of David, a shepherd boy, no armor, no military training. But when Goliath appeared, it was not David's size that mattered. It was his spirit. Come the fence off, he ran toward the battle, not because he trusted himself, but because he trusted the God who called him. That is the posture of the lion-hearted. Not arrogance, but audacity. Not pride, but purpose. You don't have to feel brave to act brave. You don't have to feel strong to move in strength. You only have to believe that if God sees a lion in you, then you owe the world your roar. Become the offense of, and here is the deeper philosophical tension. If God sees something in you that you don't see in yourself, whose opinion should you trust? Become the odds of. Is it possible that you've allowed trauma, rejection, or failure to rewrite the script of your identity? The offense of. Perhaps the issue is not that God hasn't spoken. It's that you've stopped listening. You've edited your self-perception to fit the narrative of your pain. But today, God is tearing that narrative apart. Offense of. He is calling you to remember who you are. Not according to what life told you, but according to what eternity knows about you. The lion is not something you become. The lion is who you are, waiting to be revealed. When you find yourself in the wilderness, confused, isolated, tested, you must understand this one truth: God has not abandoned you. In fact, it is often in the wilderness that heaven is most active. It is not the palace that produces lions. It is the desert. It is in the wilderness that God breaks what be broken and awakens what must arise. You see, when God sees a lion in you become the offense, He doesn't thrust you immediately into battle. He trays your roar in secret. Before there is a platform, there is pressure. Offense of. Before there is elevation, there is isolation. Psychologically, we are conditioned to equate struggle with failure, to interpret pain as punishment. But from a divine perspective, pain is a precursor to power. Look at David. Before he ever stepped onto the battlefield to face Goliath, he had already fought lions and bears. Not in front of cheering crowds. It offends, but in silence, in solitude, in a field where no one was watching. The wilderness was his training ground. The lions of the lions didn't come to destroy him. They came to reveal him. Every unseen battle prepared him for the moment that would define him. Many of us want to roar in public, but we resist the discipline that happens in private. We want the crown without the cave. Become the offense of. But God works in reverse. He hides you before He reveals you. He tests you before He trusts you with territory. And the test rarely comes when you feel ready. It comes when your mind is tired, when your faith is fragile, when your emotions are unstable. Become the offense of. That is when God begins to mold the lion in you. Not when everything is aligned, but when everything feels like it's falling apart. This wilderness is not accidental. It's intentional. It is not a detour, it is the design. It turns off. And what's fascinating is that the wilderness is not only a place of struggle, it is a place of encounter. Moses encountered God in the burning bush in the wilderness. Jesus was led by the Spirit into the wilderness to fast and be tested before launching His public ministry. The offense of. The wilderness is not where you lose yourself, it is where you find out what you are made of. Because when everything is stripped away, when comfort is removed, when the noise is silenced, what remains is your essence. And God speaks to your essence, not your image. Philosophically, this touches on the principle of necessary suffering. Suffering is not inherently virtuous, but when it is divinely allowed, it serves a purpose higher than your present understanding. It stretches the soul. It deepens the voice. It breaks the shell of fear. It challenges your ego. The lion in you cannot emerge through comfort. It is pressure that activates potential. The deeper the call, become the offense of, the heavier the preparation. And if you are in the wilderness right now, it is not because you are forgotten. It is because you are being forged. The tragedy is that many abandon their process in the wilderness. They confuse delay with denial. They believe that silence means God has withdrawn. But what if the silence is strategic? Come the offense of. What if the absence of applause is protecting you from arrogance? What if the solitude is saving you from shallow ambition? We must relearn how to interpret divine silence. Sometimes God is not speaking because He is watching. Offense of. He is waiting to see if you will trust Him when you cannot trace Him. That is the true test of faith. Not hearing His voice, but obeying His last instruction. Even when the wind is against you, the wilderness will humble you. It will break your pride. Come the offense of. It will confront the false narratives you have built around your identity. It will expose the difference between your voice and God's voice. And yet, if you endure it, you will emerge not just with a louder voice, but with a deeper roar. The wilderness is not punishment. It is preparation for the platform you have prayed for. Because if your roar is not refined, it becomes reckless. But when it is sharpened in the fire of solitude, it becomes a weapon in the hands of God. Understand this: every delay you face, It does every door that shuts, every betrayal you endure in the wilderness. It is not working against you. The offense, it is forming something within you that success cannot teach. Success reveals character, but suffering builds it. There are revelations reserved for the wilderness. You may not see the full picture now, but hindsight will reveal the genius of God's timing. The offense of you will look back and realize that the pain was a prophecy, that the tears were watering your future, that the silence was not neglect, but divine nurturing. The enemy knows this too. That's why the pressure in your wilderness is so intense. Hell always attacks what heaven has anointed, and the greater the pressure, the greater the potential. The enemy wants you to quit before you roar. He wants you to misinterpret your season and silence self prematurely. But here, lions are not silent creatures. Even in pain, they roar. Even in obscurity, they train. Even in isolation, they prepare. So the question is not, why am I in the wilderness? The real question is, what is God building in me while I'm here? Because the wilderness is not just a place, it's a process, a divine classroom where you don't just learn who God is, but who you are. And once you know who you are, you become unstoppable, not because life becomes easier, but because your roar becomes undeniable. Become the offense of. You must understand that the intensity of the battle around you is not random. It is a reflection of what you carry within you. Heaven recognizes the lion in you, and so does hell. The weight of your warfare is evidence of the size of your calling. The adversity that surrounds your life is not because you are weak, it is because your potential is a threat. The enemy does not waste his arsenal on empty vessels. He targets those who carry something dangerous to his agenda. And let me tell you, when God sees a lion in you, hell sees a revolution. This is where many people falter. They misinterpret opposition as rejection. Become the offense of. They believe resistance means they are doing something wrong, when in fact it is often confirmation that they are doing something right. You do not face fierce resistance because you are insignificant. You face it because you are marked. And what you carry cannot be allowed to mature peacefully in a world governed by fear. The lion you threatens the order of mediocrity. It exposes the comfort of compromise. It challenges the silence of the timid. And so you are opposed, not because you are weak, but because you are awakening. You see, the lion is not only strength, it is clarity, it's identity. It is a recognition of divine assignment. And identity is a dangerous thing in a world designed to keep you confused. The moment you realize who you are in God, you become unmanageable to systems that benefit from your silence. There are principalities that fear your awakening. There are powers that tremble at your voice. The enemy would rather have you distracted by your insecurities than activated in your assignment. The offense of. That is why the attacks come so early, so often, and so personally, because the goal is to silence your roar before it finds its rhythm. This is not merely theological, it is psychological. The battle is not just spiritual warfare, it is mental warfare. It does not, if the enemy can shape your thoughts, he can suppress your identity. He doesn't have to destroy you physically, he just needs to convince you that you are powerless. And once you believe that lie, you start walking like a victim when you were born to be a victor. You start playing small to fit into rooms you are called to dominate. You start shrinking your voice to make insecure people comfortable. You let fear become your language, forgetting that you were born to roar. You see, your potential is not a future version of yourself. It is the current version of yourself, obscured by fear, shame, and doubt. But once the veil is lifted, and you recognize what you carry, everything changes. That's why self-awareness is such a dangerous gift, because once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Once you know you are a lion, even crawling feels temporary. You may stumble, you may blind, you may even fall, but you will not stay down, because lions are not trained to retreat. They are born to rise. And here is where it becomes a philosophical matter of purpose. You are not created to fit in. You are created to stand out, not for applause, but for impact. And the world needs your roar, not your silence. Become the offense of. The people around you are not waiting for another imitation. They are waiting for someone bold enough to be original. When God placed the lion in you, He was not offering a suggestion. He was revealing your nature. To suppress your voice is to deny your Creator. To hide your gift is to rob the world of what only you are designed to give. So when the storms come, do not ask, why me? Ask instead, what in me is this storm trying to break? Because storms don't come to destroy the lion, they come to awaken it. The roar is not optional, it is necessary. Your voice is the key to territories that have been locked by fear. Your courage is the answer to someone else's confusion. Your testimony is the evidence that survival is possible. And when you rise, you give others permission to rise. When you roar, it ignites a chorus in others who've been silent for too long. Now consider this more the offense of what if the very thing you've been running from is the thing you are called to confront? What if the Goliath in your life is waiting not for your sword, but for your voice? It is not always what you carry in your hand that matters. It is what you carry in your spirit. David did not defeat Goliath with armor. He defeated him with identity. He knew who he was. And when you know who you are, no giant can intimidate you, no critic can silence you, no failure can define you. And so if hell has been loud, if the opposition has been relentless, if the attacks have been personal, it is not because you are weak, it is because you are waking up. The offense of the enemy fears what you will become once you stop doubting and start declaring, once you stop hiding and start walking. Once stop whispering and start roaring. Because when a child of God remembers who they are, become offensive, they don't have permission, they only need conviction. And conviction once ignited is unstoppable.